All right, welcome back, Mom and Dad and Grandma. Just kidding. Even my family doesn't listen to this shit. Let's have a moment of silence, please, for the podcaster who just assassinated himself on his own channel. Okay, well, today I'm looking at The Blade Itself by Joe Protein Shake Abercrombie. I mean, seriously, have you seen this guy's arms? For a book about swords, he seems to really appreciate guns. Heyo! Alright. The Blade Itself was an enjoyable read, a bit slow to start and quick to finish. That's what she said. Wait, we're not still doing that? Oh, okay. But really, the first half to 3/4 of this book was like starting your car in the winter in Maine, just too damn slow. Luckily, Abercrombie has populated his story with fascinating characters and excellent dialogue. In fact, I'd argue that's the whole point of this book, just to live with his characters for a while and listen to them banter. We have Logan Ninefingers, the bad barbarian who's breaking good, Glotka, then dazzling duelist, now crippled torturer who's breaking bad, Jezel, the insufferable Nancy who seems ripe for a redemption arc, West, a solid and dependable man but an angry drunk, just like my best friend, Pharaoh, whose name is quite obviously a riff off of Feral and tells you all you need to know about her, and let's not forget Baez, who is as much a main character as anyone, despite the reader never getting the story from his perspective. Events seem to really gather momentum when he turns up and starts gathering his weird little fellowship. The mystery and intrigue surrounding his character and purpose are major linchpins to the plot. Speaking of the plot, without spoiling it completely, let's just look at some snippets of text that give the book its flavor. On page 11, I feel like I'm reading my own biography as our protagonist Glotka struggles with stairs. Truly a thrill. Did I enjoy it? For most people, stairs are a mundane affair. For me, an adventure. Too real. On pages 62 to 64, we get to see the delightfully romantic Jezel, who would make an excellent cast member on a dating show. Just don't let her be too ugly, and not too stupid either. Anything but an afternoon wasted on a stupid girl. Jezel's heart sank. A deep voice. She sounded like a fat one. Jezel wasn't sure he liked that last comment, and he wasn't sure he liked the way she looked at him, but he was enjoying looking at her, so he was prepared to forgive a lot. What a lovely young lad. Makes me miss dating. On page 37, there's an example of the descriptive writing, which I don't consider to be one of this book's strengths. On top was the gray and puffy white of the cloudy sky. Then there was the ragged line of black crags that ringed the lake, and the dim brown suggestion of others beyond. Next came the dark green of the wooded slopes, then the thin curving line of gray shingle on the beach. Yeah, I mean, No, the cloud is white, okay. The crags are black. There's dark green trees. It's really not that great. But meanwhile, on page 158, there's a line of dialogue that reverberates with my moral identity. There's always something dark about a man with money, said Severard. Page 192 proffers a quote from a revered ancient text, which is a trope I'd like to see more of. If a man seeks to change the world, he should first understand it. The smith must learn the ways of metals, the carpenter the ways of wood, or their work will be of little worth. Base magic is wild and dangerous, for it comes from the other side, and to draw from the world below is fraught with peril. The magus tempers magic with knowledge, and thus produces high art, but like the smith or the carpenter, he should only seek to change what he understands. On page 264, we finally get an evocative description of Logan Ninefingers, proving that good things come to those who wait. Never in his life had Jezel seen a more brutish-looking man. His face was like a whipped back, crisscrossed with scars. His nose was bent, pointing off a little sideways. One ear had a notch out of it. One eye seemed a touch higher than the other, surrounded by a crescent-shaped wound. His whole face, in fact, was slightly beaten, broken, lopsided, like that of a prize fighter who has fought a few bouts too many. Page 448 introduces a new derogatory term I could really get behind. Fat, ugly, lazy pinks with no God but eating and idleness. Hey, that feels like a personal attack. But really, pinks is class. What a great insult that is, calling people pinks. I love it. On page 478, Abercrombie is clearly plagiarizing my teenage journal. Love. He had always regarded the whole notion with contempt. A stupid word. A word for bad poets to harp on and foolish women to chatter about. A thing found in childish stories and with no relevance to the real world, where relationships between men and women were simple matters of fucking and money. Okay, bit blunt. If you treat this book like a pride fight and weigh what happens at the end with more importance, it's a pretty great book. I've heard it compared to A Song of Ice and Fire, and while George R.R. Martin endorses it on the cover, I'm not sure I see that connection. The Blade itself for me was much more shallow, action-oriented, and even comical at times, none of which is bad. I also love the tantalizing hints to this world's origin, their creation myth, their gods. You get just enough of it to leave you wanting. I imagine the story picks up in books 2 and 3, but even if it doesn't, I'll return for the characters. As I find the 5-star system a bit limiting, I like to use my subjective rating system SLICK, which stands for Story, Language, Ideas, and Characters on a 10-point scale. Here's how I rated The Blade itself. For story, I gave it an 8. There's a glacial start, but the last 150 pages are global warming. For language, I gave it a 7. The dialogue is the star here for sure. For ideas, I gave it a 7. Abercrombie applies some interesting twists to old tropes. For characters, I gave it a 10. I've honestly forgotten the plot a little bit already, but the characters have stuck with me and are definitely why I'll return. I also strive for a contrived comparison with every book. Reading this book, for me, was like being a hot girl at a frat party in the 90s. Sure, it starts a bit lame, but once everyone is drunk, woo! There's a half-naked guy cuddling a pizza on a futon, a drunk girl writing lipstick messages on the fridge, and someone either brought their kids or there's dwarves in the beanbag chairs. Interesting characters everywhere. I'm having a great time, and yet I'm inexplicably sleepy. Damn roofies. Well, that's it. Hope you enjoyed the review or hated it or somewhere in between. I guess I've covered all bases there. Give it a like if you want. Drop some comments if you read the book and agree or feel differently. And we'll see you next week on R-Rated Reviews.